When Assassin's Creed Odyssey comes out later this year, it will offer something new to the series.
And the first choice you'll make at the start of the game is to choose your character. Alexios or Cassandra?
At first blush, it's easy to view this as strictly an improvement. After all, you can always ignore the character you don't choose, and what's wrong with giving players more choice? But dig a little deeper and there are fundamental issues with character selection. In this video I'm going to argue two things. Why there should only be one protagonist, and why it should be Cassandra, and it's not just because she's canon. Let's start by digging into the core of genetic memory, which is the basis of reliving historical events in the series.
What is a memory, Mr. Miles?
It's the recollection of a past event.
Specific to the individual remembering the event.
Yeah, sure.
What if I told you that the human body not only housed an individual's memory, but the memories of his ancestors as well? Genetic memory, if you will.
So while memories may be passed down through generations, at the root they are experienced and formed by a single person. How then are Alexios and Cassandra both able to relive the exact same set of memories, experience the same story, as if they were the same person? For Ubisoft's explanation, let's first look at a quote from a Ubisoft news article on June 11th. The DNA is old and imprecise, so it offers you the choice to pursue two characters, says creative director Jonathan Dumont. There's also some fuzziness in the historical record, because Alexios and Cassandra come from a lost book of Herodotus, the first historian, who wrote about a hero that could be one of these two characters. Let's start with the first sentence, which states, "The DNA is old and imprecise, so it offers you the choice to pursue two characters." There are multiple issues with this explanation. The first is that, at its root, the DNA and its memories still belong to a single person, no matter how old and damaged it is. This is backed up by Ubisoft confirming in a recent AMA that Cassandra is the historically canonical character, aka who the memories actually belong to. What Jonathan then suggests is that the DNA is so old and badly damaged and imprecise that the memories cannot be identified as Cassandra's. So where do the personas of Alexios and Cassandra even come from then? Is the Animus just making them up? Well, in a recent interview with the site multiplayer.it, narrative director Melissa McCubry states that in the present day, Layla will find two strands of DNA on the spear, and which one you follow determines your character. This doesn't make any sense, as Alexios will have lived a different life than Cassandra and will have different memories in his DNA, unless they were joined at the hip their entire lives, which is obviously not the case. Dumont's interview seems to suggest that the character information might also come from the historical record, in the form of the lost book of Herodotus. It has also been suggested that the historical record might be fed into the Animus to help fill in the historical gaps left in the imprecise DNA. Of course, the issue with using the historical record for anything in the Animus is that it has been repeatedly mocked and depicted as inaccurate and inferior to genetic memory throughout the series.
That's the beauty and the horror of the Animus. A device that allows us to enter and experience the lives of our ancestors. It holds the power to change everything, to show us history the way it really happened. Up until its creation, to the victor went the spoils, went the truth. We're trying to fix that.
The historical record will also be of no use to what Layla really cares about.
And we wanted to continue the story of Layla, so she will be here with us. And she's on the search for first civilization knowledge and first civilization artifacts.
Since the Isu are absent in the historical record, Layla will have to rely on the old DNA for this information. And if the DNA is so imprecise that you can't even tell the gender of who the memories belong to, how can it be trusted to contain accurate first civ information, or tell a decent personal story for that matter? Now, some of you might say, well, maybe the DNA is selectively damaged in a way that leaves the Isu memories intact, but nothing about who is experiencing them. And sure, that could technically be the case. It would just be very, very convenient. And that gets to my larger point about character selection in general. It's absolutely possible to explain it in the lore, it just comes at the cost of being incredibly convoluted and contrived, which hurts player investment in the narrative in the long run. With the novel representing the canonical story of Cassandra and her choices, every explanation for character selection pretty much comes down to the Animus loading an Alexios skin onto Cassandra's memories. And what's the point of that? At that point, you might as well just make a full-on character creator. And even if you are in favor of character selection, can we all at least agree that this is a gameplay feature in desperate search of a lore explanation, and not a good example of narrative and gameplay working together hand in hand? That's never a good place to find your series in. My final argument against character selection is that the more it goes on, the more it will have long-term detrimental effects on how connected the series is. Imagine entering the Monteriggioni Sanctuary, only to find genderless, unidentifiable statues, or maybe a statue dedicated to Cassandra when you had chosen to play as Alexios. It's a mess waiting to happen. So, if I've convinced you that there should only be one protagonist for Odyssey, who should it be? I argue that it should be Cassandra, and my reasoning may upset some of you because it's kind of meta, but hear me out. Cassandra should be the protagonist of Assassin's Creed Odyssey because the series is long overdue for a real female protagonist, not in a portable game or a spin-off, and not one that's propped up and overshadowed by other playable male characters. An honest-to-God mainline female protagonist, and here's why. At the core of Assassin's Creed lies a message that this series, and history itself, is bigger than any one time period, any one setting, and any one protagonist, even Ezio. That anyone has the potential to leave their mark on history, whether you're a Florentine noble, a poor Welshman, an orphan Native American, or a former slave. To paraphrase a quote from Ratatouille, not everyone can become a great assassin, but a great assassin can come from anywhere. It's a big part of why this series resonates so much with fans, and why you see communities form around different areas of the world. Everyone is eager for their culture, their race, their gender to be represented, in part because it fuels the fantasy that the next great assassin could come from anyone, even themselves. History was not made just by white European men, as represented by the majority of Assassin's Creed games so far, and it is for this reason that the series is long overdue to tell a woman's story in the mainline games. Assassin's Creed should be leading the industry in representation, not following, and quite frankly it's beyond embarrassing that series like Gears of War and Battlefield will have female protagonists in their main games before Assassin's Creed. As far as I'm concerned, diversity and representation are as core to this series as anything else, and anyone who disagrees is turning a blind eye to a big part of what makes this series truly special. Before I end, I'd be remiss not to mention the sad reality of Odyssey's marketing. Though Cassandra is historically canon, you wouldn't know it from the marketing materials, where Alexios dominates the box art, screenshots, collectible figures, related books, and more. You might remember that with Ubisoft Quebec's last game, Evie was excluded from most marketing materials as well, including the E3 trailer, and was sidelined on the box art. So while this behavior is not surprising, it doesn't make it any less disappointing. Declaring Cassandra canon while marketing Alexios reminds me of the time Jacob was offhandedly declared to be bisexual a few months after Syndicate came out. These half-hearted measures hint at rifts within Ubisoft, where forces struggle to present a unified front on what Ubisoft thinks is important about the series. Because it's one thing to throw up a diversity disclaimer on a purchased game, and another thing to actually commit the development and marketing dollars to tell the stories of marginalized people. So, to summarize, making Cassandra the only protagonist of Odyssey would solve a slew of problems. No more convoluted and contrived additions to the lore, a female protagonist that the series deserves, and the forcing of Ubisoft to put their marketing money where their mouth is. Hey everyone, I just wanted to quickly say thank you for your support while I was on hiatus. It really means a lot to me. I have a couple more video essays planned for Odyssey, as well as some podcasts and a special Revelations video, so stay tuned and subscribed. See ya!